My biggest takeaway, really, there were two. One was, I guess the rumors of maybe Caleb's initially low desire to go to Chicago, and then at least it sounds like he warmed to the idea. And then the second thing was that no one was consistently watching tape with him from the staff or veteran quarterback, and I know they didn't have one, watching tape with them, teaching them how to study tape, teaching them how to study defensive tape in the NFL. And I know that's been a massive talking point since then, and there's been differing experiences or opinions on it. But the fact that you ran that type of offense that is a pretty, wordy offense, and really no one was taking his football understanding to the next level or kind of to the starting point necessary in the NFL was literally shocking to me. And I've been around some stuff in the NFL that I was like, there's no way that that's real. Because part of my reaction was like, that's not true. Like, there's no way there's no way that you would be that unprepared and candidly dumb. And if, again, those reports are true, which it seems to be, it's just unbelievable to me.
Dan, two parts to my question here. First of all, how much of the film study do you think Caleb was used to, having played for Lincoln Riley and then at least for a year with Cliff Kingsbury? And based on what you've described, on top of that, how damaging do you think can it be for a young quarterback if, in fact, he is neglected in the manner in which was described?
It could be wildly damaging in that year. I don't think it'll have long-term effects because, hopefully the new staff completely changes the way that they go about things and teaches him. But in the moment, yeah, it could be really damaging. Like I've said this, Caleb's 4 billion times more talented than I ever was, but I'm just sharing my experience of when I was a young player. For really the first couple of years, we didn't really have a ton of that. I had some veterans, but I remember being in meeting rooms, an install, and the coaches not paying attention to that install because they knew the writing was on the wall that they were getting fired, and so they were preparing for other jobs. As a young player, as a young quarterback, and everything's falling on your shoulders, like you're just defeated. You're just sitting there going, oh, I really am all out there by myself. And I'm not saying Caleb felt that way, but I could understand it if he was. So I think it could crush your psyche. I'll touch on the Lincoln Riley, Cliff, and experience. So, a lot of times quarterbacks that are coming into the league nowadays in comparison to 15, 20 years ago, one, everyone knows they're probably not experienced in the huddle. Two, most of their life has probably been running no huddle offense, which you're not changing formation a ton. You're not shifting a ton. The defense is going to be a little bit more basic because they're just trying to get lined up. I've said this. You talk to college coaches that have to deal with teams running this tempo, no huddle all the time, which is something he did for most of his college career. You go, what's the number one thing you got to do on defense? They go, we just got to get lined up. So you're not even seeing different formations when it comes to fronts or coverage changes. And so there's a simplistic way that you play offense in college, and there's also a simplistic way that defenses play. So not having experience of seeing a lot of different stuff in college, I don't know how much tape they watched in college. Truly studied, because as a quarterback, I was taught from Gary Kubiak and Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur and Greg Knapp. Like you have to study what the defense is going to do in situations and what they're going to do to our personnel and what they're going to do to our formations to try to get an advantage of what you're going to see post-snap. You don't really do that in college right now because think about it from this regard. I'm running to the line of scrimmages at USC. We get to the ball, and there's 30 seconds on the play clock. Well, Coach Riley can see what the defense is doing, and he just signals the play into me, and then we just run the play. I don't have to figure that out. And so that doesn't mean he's not capable of it, but it's just not a tool in his toolbox right now.
Dan, it's amazing. And we're talking to Dan Orlovsky. It's Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. And I know you referred to a lot of other people with different opinions, too. Kurt Warner, I know you guys have a great relationship and can go back and forth on Twitter a little bit. And I love Kurt. Covered him when he was in the NFL. But what I don't understand is when someone like Kurt says, well, I didn't get that tutelage too, so Caleb should be able to survive. Or other people saying, well, Caleb should have asked for help. Like, this is an organization, the Bears, that has never developed a quarterback, that said before he started, we want to break the cycle. Those words are hollow until they do it. So I don't understand why other people are making excuses for the Bears in this regard.
I totally agree. And I love Kurt. Kurt also spent some time in some other leagues too. So maybe when he got to the NFL, he had it. Like he had learned it, and so God bless him, and it wasn't a necessary thing that he needed. I'm not absolving Caleb. I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, Caleb should have done this. It's very easy for everybody and I'm saying this with all due respect, but it's to make the point, that hasn't done that bared the burden of that position to sit there and go, well, he should have known how to do it, or he should have figured it out in college, or he should have asked the coaches. And this is what I always say. You're just trying, and you use the word, you're trying to survive at that point. You're just trying to survive, let alone thrive. You've got to take in, how much it is for a young quarterback to learn all of you have to learn, from the playbook to the huddle operation, to the cadence operation, to the verbiage operation. You're trying to study your game plan. Like, you're trying to memorize your game plan, let alone having the time and the brain ability and just a non-mentally exhausted window to learn how to study what the defense is doing. And so that's why there's just so much, like, just from going from a day-by-day perspective, let's live in the world where Caleb had the reports are true. Monday's game gets done. You're just watching tape or Sunday's game. Monday, you're watching the day before game. Tuesday's the day off. So you go in and start to study some tape, but the coaches are usually spending the whole day Tuesday game planning. Wednesday, you get in there and it starts to install your game plan, and you spend all of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like, doing your game plan. So it's easy to sit there and go, well, Caleb should have figured it out and done it himself or spoke up. He might have just been trying to figure out what they were doing, let alone firing an offensive coordinator. Like, it's very easily point the finger at Caleb. I'll do it for 1%. 99% of this story and the reporting of it falls squarely on the organization and the staff.
What about others? We look on unsportsmanlike. They were saying, not they, but who's the former NFL player?
Chris Canty.
Chris Canty was saying on unsportsmanlike that Caleb is entitled. And I heard Boomer Esiason sort of have the same sort of take where this could affect him in the views of other players or fans. What do you say to that a lot of the statements that Caleb and his dad said made him look entitled?
Yeah, I would probably agree that some of that stuff in some of the comments do make him sound, with the level of like, hey, I'm coming to you, so you have to bend the knee to me type of thing. So the entitlement, I can understand that. And the reality is Caleb and his dad and the quotes, it does point the target at them a little bit like, okay, it's like we're out of that now. You got to go get it done. And so I understand that. I think there's also reality that a lot of the kids that are coming through the NIL world and college world, it's a different viewpoint that they have. There is an expectation of entitlement or, I don't need you type of mindset at times, because these guys are making so much money in college, and it's not the NFL is their best opportunity to make life-changing money. Many of them have already experienced that. I mean, Caleb lived a unique life in LA, high rise. Mm-hmm. He was driving expensive cars. I understand how easy it is to sit there and say that about him. We probably all would have taken advantage of it as 19-year-olds if we were given the same opportunity as well. So we're trying to be real about my mindset of it. Listen, the target's huge on Caleb right now. It just is. Last year was a disappointing year. It is probably as good a situation as you could hope for as a second-year quarterback. He's got the hottest named offensive coordinator in the NFL over maybe the last 5 to 10 years as his head coach. They've got a ton of perimeter talent. They spent a ton of money on the offensive line. He's got world-beating physical talent. and these quotes come out saying initially he doesn't want to go to the Bears. The target is very much so on his back, and there is not one quarterback in the NFL that has got more pressure on them to take a giant leap than Caleb Williams this year. That's just his reality.
And Dan, with that said, does the addition of Ben Johnson help him clear that hurdle and actually solve some of these issues that maybe were persistent last year and could be as they go to training camp this year?
If Caleb obsesses over his feet, if Caleb can do something that he's not really consistently done as a player, and I don't know if you guys heard it, but, months back when the reports of the names, I had hesitation with Ben Johnson going to Chicago just because I was like, listen, the foundational points of the pass game in that offense is you have to play on time and on rhythm with your feet. Sure, it's fun to be creative and all that. And you have to. That's why Jared Goff thrived in it, because he was brought up in it. And so that's not the strength of Caleb's game. That's the flaw of Caleb's game. Is he incapable of it? No, but he hasn't shown to be the calling card of his game. So, if he can obsess about that and really, really make that a strength of his game, then yeah, this will work out very well, and Ben Johnson and him will have a ton of success. But that's a big if. I want people to understand, that's not something that just comes, through 10 practices and OTAs and a mini camp type of thing. It takes a very long period of time and hundreds of reps to really get control of that part of your game.
It's funny you say that, Dan, because I guess I've just ignored the concept of, yes, there has to be buy-in. That's just because I've been so frustrated watching them try to develop a quarterback over time. But what you're saying is, and you got a pretty strong-minded coach in Ben Johnson, that if Caleb doesn't buy in, there could be some friction there, especially early.
Oh, gosh, yeah. There has to not only be buy-in, but there has because the saying is, be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there and never fool the quarterback when it comes to the perimeter players in this kind of offense. When you're running those deep in-breaking routes at 18 to 20 yards and that ball is supposed to be ripped 4 yards inside the hash, and when that guy comes out of his cut, he's expecting it to be on his face mask. If DJ Moore is running his butt or Rome's running his butt off on those routes and it's not there and it's behind them or, a miss, the window is only the window for so long. And so, yeah, it's got to take a buy-in. It's got to take a trust. It's got to take an understanding. And, you might be able to mask some of the misses because physical talent and playmaking. But the best, think about it from the Green Bay perspective world with Jordan Love. Because Jordan has had some highs and lows. It's a very similar system. When Jordan's on and his feet are proper, it's this offense can hum. And when Jordan gets a little bit into some of the bad habits that physically talented guys do, that's when mistakes get made or that's when opportunities are missed. And so it absolutely has to be a buy-in and, let's be honest, an execution and application pretty consistently.
Dan, before we let you go, what would your prediction be on everything? You just mentioned he's got the most pressure in your eyes of any quarterback in the NFL. But as you also added, he's got Ben Johnson. He's got great skill guys. When we have you on midway through the season or next year at this time, what will we be saying about Caleb Williams?
He's taken the jump. I don't know Caleb personally. I don't. I have heard he's a really good kid and he wants to be great and he's a hard worker. So I'm banking on that a little bit. And knowing now the Wickersham story and how it sounds like he was on an island by himself last year in many ways. If you take the work ethic and you take the smarts and you take the desire to be great, you take really good coaching, they've got plenty of talent. I got to believe that young man sits there and realizes, goodness gracious, if I can just be totally locked in on this for the next 2 years and trust this coach, I'm going to get so much money and we're going to have so much success. I got to believe that that's his mindset and he develops the timing part of his game.
Dan, great stuff. We always appreciate your time and all the best heading into the football season, okay?
Thanks, Dan.
Great to catch up. Be well, guys.